I have a Schefflera plant. This thing is so root bound. I pulled it out of the pot. It was in this pot right here, which is a really good sized pot. And I don't have a bigger pot to put it in. So I'm going to put it back in this pot. And it is so root bound, like not just roots going down and being compacted, the roots were coming back up and swirling around at the top of the pot. There was no way, in my opinion, for it to receive proper nutrition, the fertilizer, nutrients that it needs. And whenever I watered it, the water just went to the sides of the pot and just ran through, and I know that the plant has not been receiving the water that it needs, so I'm just going to repot it. The roots are so thick and so compacted, I'm going to trim some of the roots off and give it some room to breathe. They will survive being root bound, but they do better if they're not root bound. Let me get this plant. Oh, it's heavy. Look at these roots. I took it out of the pot and I laid it on the ground and I just hosed it really hard with a hard burst of water for about 20 minutes and washed all of the soil out of it. And now I'm going to lay it up here and I'm going to try to trim some of those roots down so that it won't be root bound like that, and maybe it'll be a healthier plant. Now I will say this, I have never done this on the Schefflera. I researched, some places said trim the roots, some places said don't. I'm going to have to use my judgment, take a chance, and I'm going to trim them, even if maybe you're not supposed to, but there's just no way that this plant can get the nutrients and the water it needs with the roots as tightly wound as they are. And I'll have the same situation, there will be no room to put any soil if I don't. So I'm going to do it regardless. I've got 3 sets of pruners here, clippers. They are not my best ones. They're actually probably the worst ones. I can't find my good ones, so I'm just going to have to deal with what I've got and hope they do the job. I did wash them because I want to make sure they're clean before I start cutting the roots. And like I said, I've never done this on this tree, on a Schefflera in general. I've done it on other plants that I know, it could be done. These things are just so entangled. I'm gonna trim the thin ones and leave the thick ones, and I'm gonna hope for the best. But it certainly can't remain this root bound. And I'll give it some nutrients and fertilize it and repot it in some fresh soil. Trouble is, my bags of new soil are soaking wet. I really wish they weren't. I don't have any dry soil. I guess it's just going to have to dry out in the pot. I won't have to water it anytime soon. I just want to get all these long wispy roots off of here, and the ones that are twined around. Girls, this thing is pretty big. But it does need to come in. I don't have room to put it in the greenhouse. And the winds that we're supposed to get from that storm could be fairly significant. We'll be on the eastern side of those bands. That's a wide storm. It's going to reach a lot of areas. It'll be the third system that we've had to deal with in a month. And I don't want it to topple over from the winds. And the last storm did actually topple it over. It didn't damage it, but being on my, it's a screened in porch where I had it. And that was a small storm that did that. So knowing that I have to bring it in anyways soon, I just figured better do it now, and I can maybe prevent some further damage. Now Scheffleras, there's several types, but in general they're also called umbrella plant. They like indirect sunlight, good sunlight, just not strong, hot, direct. And it did really well on the porch because it got indirect sunlight. It was part shade, part sun, kind of dappled sun throughout the day. The sun came and went in that area on the porch, and it did really well. But this is going back in my house for the winter. And I think I'm going to put it over beside the fireplace. This is a pretty tough little tree. The limbs don't break and bend too easily. They like to be watered, but not necessarily stay wet. Just kept moist, not allowed to dry out. They're really more of an indoor plant, but since my porch was screened and covered, it worked good out there. But I don't want to put this in the greenhouse. I don't have room. I have a small Schefflera out there, but it doesn't take up much room right now because it's not that big. But at some point, they're pretty fast growers if all the conditions are right and all of the needs are met. At some point, I'll probably bring that one inside the house that's out there. They typically like their temperatures to not go down below 60. On average, I keep the greenhouse about between 50 and 55 for the sake of my citrus trees and my bougainvillea. And the Schefflera out there has done well, even though it actually does stay about 50, 55 instead of the typical 60 that they like. I guess it adapted because I've had it out there since it was just a little tiny thing. I took this out in the yard in an area where I had a dip in the yard. I guess you could call it a hole. It was just a dip, and it was hard to mow over that dip. The grass never wanted to mow properly. And I laid it on this dolly over here, and I washed all of the soil away from the roots and just let it fall into that hole. That way I don't have to carry soil over there at some point, which it's been on the bucket list, but never got to it. Ooh. No, no, no. Ooh. One of those water bugs crawled up my boot, went down in my boot, and was playing on my leg. Ugh. It's gone. It's still pretty large, but I can't cut it too small. I don't want to do too much trimming. I think this will do. There's still a lot of roots left. I think that's good. It still has some leaves in it. I'll have to get out. I'll do some finer pruning on some little dead twigs after I get it back in the soil. I think that will be good. When plants get root bound and they start having trouble taking up the nutrients or surviving very well, you'll start seeing signs. Some of the leaves will start yellowing. You won't see an overall healthy appearance, and it will probably slow down in forward growth. And if all else is well, like you know that your soil is good, you know that it's got the nutrients and you're watering properly, the next thing to consider is, can it be root bound? And there's a lot of plants that actually do well and like to be root bound, but not all plants do well being root bound, and the Schefflera is one of them. They need to be repotted every 3 to 5 years, maybe sooner if you notice all the conditions for its growing environment are good, but yet it seems to not be thriving, then it might still need to be repotted. Now, even though this soil is wet, I will thoroughly water it anyways. I hate to do it, but I'll leave it out here so that it can dry out a little bit, but I will thoroughly water it so that all that soil can go down and fill in all the little cracks and crevices and voids between those roots. is. Whew, that was a job. Now it's going to have to sit out here for the better part of the day because it's not sunny. It'll probably take all day for the soil to dry out enough where I want to bring it in the house and it not be leaking water constantly. But it's done. That was a job for sure. I think it'll be healthier and it'll be safe from any storms, and it'll already be in place when I have to start wrapping things up for our cold temperatures. I've got another one out here, over here in this, there we go, in that corner. That's a big plant that I need to repot. I'll walk over there in just a second and show you. That one will have to go in the greenhouse. By the way, this Schefflera is over 15 years old. This back here is called Devil's Backbone. Let me move in. The soil in this one's getting pretty depleted and I need to repot this. This is a variegated Devil's Backbone. It's also known as Redbird or Cardinal Christmas, I think. Oh, am I saying that right? I call it the Devil's Backbone. That's what I know it as. And this one is over 15 years old. And I need to put some supports on it because it's growing, leaning over. Back in the spring, I cut it down really low to almost nothing. And all of this is new growth. The thing about these is they are toxic, and if you mess with them without gloves, you're going to burn your skin. It oozes a noxious milk substance that will burn skin, and so you have to be careful with it. So I've been putting off repotting this one, but this will go in the greenhouse, certainly not in my house. It was given to me last year by my daughter-in-law's mother, and I mean, I don't know what to do with it, but I do like it. I like the looks of it. Not all the leaves are variegated. Some are and some are not. It makes me wonder if it's not 2 in 1 pot. But anyways, that's the next one. At some point here real soon, I've got to repot that and move that into the greenhouse. I've got a lot of hanging baskets out here that I need to either repot or just clean up and bring inside for the winter. I've got 3 Christmas cactus to bring in and a lot of hanging baskets all over the property. We have our first frost November 3rd, I do believe, but we're pretty cold in October, and since we are right on the doorstep of October, I figured I better get started sorting out the plants that's got to go in the house or in the greenhouse and start moving them so that I don't have to do it all at one time. Even though we're more than a month away, that's really not a lot of time when I've got as many plants as I do, plus all the other things on the property that has to be done. So I guess I'm done with this video. I thank you for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see y'all on the next video. Bye bye.